I respect what Elon has achieved. I deplore his character. I don't like him. Elon Musk is just, he's a hypocrite. Let's call it what it is. I mean, he has the audacity to tell South Africa that it can't have laws to empower people who are disempowered by law. I should tell you, a law which he was empowered by. His own father, who I debated at Oxford Union, benefited from apartheid by running mines during apartheid, which black people were not allowed to do. So Elon Musk went to school in a Rolls Royce because his dad was benefiting from the system he says we shouldn't have in place. Who does he think he is? Is the first point I want to make. Second point I want to make. Beginning of this year, I was in a country in the Middle East. I won't mention who they are. This country has incredibly harsh restrictions on Twitter. One of Elon Musk's CEO was in the same room with me. In fact, he was set 2 people away from me at this particular conference, raising money for Grok AI from that same country. So let me see if I understand this. Here is a country that limits the use of Elon Musk's technology, but he finds nothing wrong with how this country uses technology, and by the way, uses that technology to surveil its citizens and incarcerate them without trial just because he's getting money from them. Elon Musk's God is money. Once you understand that, you don't have a struggle understanding Elon Musk. He isn't led by principle. He's led by his God, which is money. Why am I saying this? First, we have a law in South Africa called Black Economic Empowerment. It's called Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment. It has had several failings. It's not policy, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But it still has demonstrated signs of success. Communities that have been built by minds who are operating in communities where by law they didn't have to build them. Now the law says, if you're operating in that area, you need to do something for the people. You're extracting from their land, do something. These are some of the nuances of this law. So Elon Musk wanted to launch Starlink in South Africa. And and we have an act that governs the telecommunication space, which his technology falls into, which act was very clear. He said, I don't want to give away a percentage of my business. Now, he doesn't have to. We've got multinationals operating in South Africa all the time. Black Economic Empowerment says, if you can't do an ownership to black people, then you can do what is called an ownership equivalent. So take the value of your company that you're going to build here. X percentage of it must be benefiting the indigenous local people. If you can't give that in an ownership, then what you'll do is you'll run programs that equal that amount.
Yeah.
Right? That's why we've got every single multinational in South Africa. We've got McDonald's, Ford, KFC, Chrysler, name them. They're in our country. They do business there. And so he wanted this whole thing about, I just want to come in and operate and I want to write my own rules. The problem with this, and I understood it from the government stage, I should tell you, I'm probably one of the most vociferous critics of our government. So there are very few times when I actually agree with them, but I understood their position, which is we either have the law or we don't. And it's either for everybody, it's for nobody. But we can't create special rules because one person has the ear of a man in the White House. That's not the way that game works. And so I think that they then took that and said, how else can we find a narrative to support this? Then came this farm narrative. Okay. If I get impassioned, excuse me. There is no such thing as a white It doesn't exist. Cut the Okay. Because if it did, the universal world of whiteness would have made sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. Donald Trump himself went and presented to Cyril Ramaphosa images of graves in the Congo. He didn't even make sure he had the right intel when he was broadcasting this to the world. So there's no such thing as this white nonsense. That's the first point I want to make. Once the white side narrative failed, they switched the narrative. They said, oh, there's no such thing as a white. There are farmers, and the farmers are white, and they're being targeted. Okay, let's double click on that. The largest by population segment of people in South Africa who suffer are black females. Those are the facts. So if there was going to be a genocide cited by a function of sector population, it would be black females. But let's look at this farm specifically. Even on the farms, the people who die in farms through murder is the highest number is farm laborers, not the farmers, which laborers are predominantly black. So even if we took this farm thing and said, let's examine it, it isn't even that, right? So what the real issue here was a whole confluence of geopolitical issues. It was the Israel question and the posture South Africa's taken on the Israel question. It was this Expropriation Act, which has been introduced now around whether or not South Africa will expropriate land at nil compensation. And then it was Elon Musk wanting to launch Starlink into South Africa and getting pushback. And each of the people who were playing, different sides of this football game kind of came together at the same time. And that's where this narrative came up. It just so happened it was the wealthiest man in the world, and he had the means to flare up this narrative and drive it. Even in South Africa today, I should tell you, there are still people who are not for the Reconciliation Project. So it's not as if you land in South Africa, everybody's for the Reconciliation Project. That's why we, myself included, take very seriously the responsibility we have to actually build a country. Because I don't know, you do know that there is a town in South Africa where if you are not a specific color and a specific cultural group, you can't live there.
I saw that on YouTube the other day.
So if there was a white genocide, how could a town only for those people exist? Surely this is where the genocide would start. That's where it would be targeted. Now, I'm not saying it should do. I don't want to be glib here, but I'm simply making the point. I take strong umbrage when people think we're not intelligent enough to see the games they play. Like, really, we can actually see the game. It's not really that smart. Let's have a political argument. Let's have an ideological argument. But